We are in Studio B, and Alistair Murray's in sunny Mettung, outside of Melbourne. He's the first one on in the chat today. Nice to see Steve Gruber on. He's among the first. Christopher Gillingham and Jane in Leamington in the UK. Our usual crowd of overachievers, or early achievers anyway.
Yes.
There's Warren Schasser in Brisbane.
Yeah.
Early in the morning in Brisbane. What is it, 8 o'clock there in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane on their Saturday morning. Good crowd on here. We have a great guest today, Julia, and a terrific show. It is Britt Ward. And I barely talked to him in a year, but he will be live from Annapolis in a moment. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Live from San Francisco, it's the Sailing Illustrated show it's show number 783 for Friday the 15th of November. I'm your host, Tom Eamon, along with our co-host and the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, as always, or almost always, is here, Julia Vedekint, a proud member, a longtime member of the St. Francis Yacht Club, and we are appreciative of all of you who are here, including Alistair Murray. And we mentioned in Melbourne, it's only 0700 in Brisbane, so that's good that they're getting up early. Warren, thank you. Warren Schasser, Bob Walker in North Texas, Ed Worley down in SoCal, Andy Cox, where it's a little dark and stormy time in Bermuda. And Peter Taylor in New York City. Hi, Peter. Say hi to your bride, to Sandy. Don Lunabo's up in Sonoma across the bridge. Fog Machine is here, Julia.
Good heavens. Hello.
Fog Machine. Yes. Good afternoon to you, Philip Laffin. And thank you all for joining us. There is rumor control right here at the top of the show, Julia.
Yes.
There is no truth to the rumor.
Oh, there isn't.
That we are buying MSNBC.
Oh, that rumor.
Look, I got a laugh out of Britt. MSNBC, one of the three top cable networks in this country, news networks, is for sale. It's losing viewership, it's losing money, and it just lost the election. They were hardcore to the left, and the U.S. is not so much attuned anymore, are they, Julia?
No.
So you're not buying that? That's a rumor?
Yes.
Okay, well, we're not. We've got plenty on. We could probably go buy them for 5 cents on the dollar and put Sailing Illustrated on the cable on MSNBC. Phil Yeoman's in Sydney, Thierry de Jong down in SoCal. Larry Kennedy also in New York City. College Nationals this weekend. Yeah, the collegiate, Julia, the collegiate match racing national championships going on at Sewanaka Corinthian Yacht Club. But without our FOSI Jeffrey Peterson, who had the leg injury, he's not able to sail, unfortunately. Fritz Mueller's down in Miami. Hello to you, to Fritz. Clayton Allen Embley. Clayton is, he was going to buy MSNBC, but don't think they have a pair of scissors that could cut a penny.
Oh.
Okay, enough of that. We have a FOSI focus here just for a second. Cool people. We love our FOSI, and we salute all of you. And as you know, last Friday, as soon as we got off the air, we told you in our Tuesday show, and we're surrounded by Aussies today. Not only is Britt Ward originally an Aussie, and we've got an AAAA today, Julia, did you see that? So Alistair's on. But this is the esteemed Pedro foiling sailor, Peter Stevenson, who as soon as we got off the air last Friday, he was knocking at our door here. He's in San Francisco, He left yesterday afternoon to fly back to Oz. It was a delight to have him here. He is the only person, correct? Tell me if I'm wrong. No one has ever sat here in the control room.
Oh, that's true.
In this chair, except for Peter. He moved right over.
Walked in
He moved right over there and sat down. And it was great to have him here.
It was. I've known him ever since we started, but
Never in person.
But never in person.
And it was great to have him here. By the way, he's been traipsing all over San Francisco. He had a family a funeral and so on, but he got over to Treasure Island. He sniffed out all the yacht clubs he wanted to know. Texted me yesterday before he left, should I join the Treasure Island Yacht Club? He did join, as we showed you on Tuesday, the Beach Street Yacht Club.
Yes.
He's a member now. We had to get Britt Ward to join next time he's in San Francisco as well. Another FOSI mention, you know who that is there, Julia? One of your favorite writers. That is Magnus.
Yeah.
The Magnificent at the New York Yacht Club with Vice Commodore Claire Harrington.
That's nice.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Nice.
I believe it was yesterday. It was either Wednesday or yesterday. He's passing through. He had never been to 44th Street.
I can't believe that.
He'd never been to Harbor Court, 44th Street. When he and Claire were together in Barcelona, as Britt has been, Britt just got back a week ago, and he was invited by Claire to the YC to see the magnificent state of affairs. I'm sure he visited the library as well. His book's probably in there. I got his book here somewhere on the back shelf behind me. We don't need to promo that again, I don't think. But great to see them.
Yes.
Great to see all of you in the chat. As much as we love the FOSI and the Zoomers, Alex Hayworth, they let Magnus in without a tie. Well, you can go in the club without a tie.
During the day.
During the day, and even in the evening now, they've relaxed the dress
really?
code. You just, you can't go in the grill room, and certain club occasions, a tie is required. In fact, New York still has their awards night, which I think was last night. And they had the race committee. They don't call it a race committee dinner or celebratory dinner like I did with my stack cruise.
Yeah.
They call it the race committee prom.
Oh.
A prom, and that's to salute and thank the race committee for their work during the year. So Magnus was there with Vice Commodore Claire Harrington. Ted Ryman checking in from Cape Town. Ken Sabin in Toledo, Ohio, but he's got the flu on the west end of Lake Erie, Toledo, Ohio. Ken, nice to see you on. Graham Sweeney up in Scotland, one of our Zoomers during.
Oh, yes.
I'll have to ask Britt if he watched any. We'll get Britt on here in a sec. He's standing by in Annapolis at his home there. I will ask him if he saw any, Julia, of our watch parties early in the morning when we had the Zoomers, Graham Sweeney, and various others who came on, including Gordon Smith saying Magnus. Roger Lockhart, I haven't seen you on in a while. Roger, greeting from breezy Newport Beach, where the power just came back on.
Oh,
is that fire related, Roger? I know you've had that big fire down there, but I thought you had that pretty well taken care of. And Gordon Smith is, as usual, in Denmark. Julia Ahrens is in chilly Cleveland. Julia?
Yes.
What are we celebrating today? There is a clue behind that lower third and in the right corner of that slide of a beautiful
Green.
Land and country.
Yeah, Ireland. Is it?
No.
Oh, Brazil.
It is Republic Day in Brazil. It's our Independence Day, the 15th of November. Obviously an annual affair, and they celebrate with parades.
Ooh, that's a great
Isn't that
picture.
great?
Yeah.
And of course, their national, at least their sporting colors, are green and yellow, as most of you will know. And what happened was that on November 15th, 1889, not that long ago, Field Marshal Deodoro da Fonseca led a military coup d'etat that overthrew the monarchy and established the Republic of Brazil. The coup was relatively peaceful and symbolized a fresh start for the country. Of course, you know who settled Brazil. It was the only country in South America settled by the Portuguese.
Oh, yeah.
By the Portuguese. Every other country in South America was settled by the Spanish and colonized, settled. And then, of course, Brazil has that huge, long border with almost every country except Venezuela and one or two others. It has a border on all the other countries, and it has a huge economy.
Yes.
So
and resources.
And ginormous resources. The Brazilians celebrate Republic Day, as we said, with parades raising the national flag and wearing the colors green and yellow. Today is a time to reflect on the country's transition to a republic and to celebrate the democratic values that shape Brazilian society today. The proclamation of the Republic also helped define Brazil's cultural identity and how European influence was assimilated into Brazilian culture. The girl from Ipanema, Jobim, all that jazz. He was my favorite. I mean, if Gershwin was the best composer in the first half of the last century, you can use your cough switch, please.
Yes.
Jobim must have been the best jazz composer.
Oh, yes. He was wonderful.
Second half.
Yeah.
Quiet Nights of Quiet Stars. Oh, man. Brings back memories, Julia. Great sailing country as well. And Speaking of which, they have just joined, as you saw me tease you probably know this, but I teased it in the show notes at the top of the show. They have now joined Sail GP with the first female skipper, too, Martina, it would be pronounced in Portuguese. Martine, and the Anglos all call her Martine, but Martina Grail is confirmed as Mubadala Brazil Sail GP team driver.
Yes.
It's like your fingernails going down a chalkboard. Driver! Julia?
I'm such a fan of hers and of that whole family, the Grail family.
You are, because did they stay here at the Beach Street Yacht Club one time?
I don't think so, but we've...
Just another one of these cute sailors that you've fallen in love with over the many
years.
Who's not a Brit or an Aussie or a Kiwi.
Conrad met all of the Grails and in Brazil.
Your late great husband, when he was running shipping down there.
Yeah, and he was back and forth to Brazil all the time and became a great fan.
Fabulous country. We celebrate them today and Martine, and next weekend Sail GP starts in Dubai. We'll see how they do. They're a well-funded team, apparently. They've absconded with some sailors from other teams we'll tell you about in the Sail GP section. We also are always celebrating the FOSI. Those of you who join us on the air, as Britt Ward is doing today. Those of you who give us a few bucks a month, especially as patrons, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And finally, a show note, next Tuesday. Remember who's coming on, Julia?
Sharon Green.
Sharon Green, the beautiful and talented and longtime sailor from the Royal Hamilton Yacht Club in Ontario, sort of between Toronto and Detroit. She will be with us. She texted me this morning. She's got videos. She's putting together her slides. Another one of these super snappers.
That'll be great.
Photogs. It will be a great show next Tuesday, as I'm sure having Britt on here with his hindsight and insight, as we called it, in the cover slide. But before we get to Britt, let's do John Emmett's. He's at his club's AGM. He's at the Castle Cove Sailing Club.
Oh, he is?
He is, as we speak. And he has just joined, John has just joined their committee, or what we would call the board of directors.
It's about time.
Well, I mean, the guy's got a lot on, but he tonight has joined their committee, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's get through to the coaching corner, John's presentation for today. Before we get there, you'll see that he's doing a walkabout at what's called the Sandsfoot Castle in Weymouth. I've never heard of it, but it's one of these fortifications, and it was built to guard Weymouth, the Weymouth Cove. This is a, what do you call that, an engraving by William Woolworth, the 19th century English engraver, circa 1825 that was done, because the fort predates that. It's now the Sandsfoot Ruins, also known historically as Weymouth Castle, is an artillery fort constructed by Henry VIII. I'm Henry VIII, I am. Near Weymouth, Dorset. It's formed part of the King's device program to protect against invasion from France and the Holy Roman Empire, yada, yada, yada. That's where John is today as we join his report.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. Today you join me at Sandsfoot Castle, or perhaps I should more accurately say Sandsfoot Ruin. This is the castle that Castle Cove is named after, Castle Cove Sailing Club. And I said it's with great sadness that Weirwood, where I learnt to sail, has now closed, and indeed then the process of selling the assets, which makes it all seem very, very real. So we need to really treasure our sailing clubs and look after these member organisations, because sadly often once they're gone, they're gone. And one of the things that we probably value the least, but is probably one of the most important things, is our health and fitness. And this brings me back to the topic of illness and injury, and today, recovery. A good recovery is absolutely key to get back to elite performance. And the issue is people often go back to training racing too soon. Sometimes I think the reason that surgery works is people are forced to take 4, 6, 8 weeks of recovery, and it's during that time that the body heals itself. And that biggest error, going back to compete too soon is something I see time and time again. And it's also the same with illness. Being 90% recovered feels very much like 100%. And the danger of going back too early is you get ill again. So sometimes less is more, and think of the big picture when it comes to recovery. With that, I'm going to go now to the AGM, and I think Castle Cove is recovering well. The club is going to get back to focusing on sailing, and Sailing Illustrated goes from strength to strength. So if you haven't done already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. In my opinion, that's probably the best way to watch the show in replay.
John Emmett, speaking of Castle Cove Sailing Club and his
Yes.
AGM, there is the photo that we received just before we went to air.
Wow.
That is look at how casual, relaxed, informal,
Yeah.
but huge crowd there.
Yes.
That they're having their AGM, obviously their leadership, the flag officers, the board maybe. And John tells me he has just tonight joined the Castle Cove Sailing Club committee, or what we again would call the board of directors.
Congratulations.
So yeah, exactly. Bravo Zulu to him. Another one of our super FOSI who are major contributors to the sport, like Alistair Murray has been, like Clark Chapin has been, like any number of other people,
Yes.
Gordon Smith, Graham Sweeney, and everybody around the world. Congratulations, Bravo Zulu, John Emmett, at the Castle Cove Sailing Club AGM. That's probably, I don't know if there's, what time is it there now? It's 21:17, so they're probably wrapped and having a an ale,
Yes.
having a cocktail in a little bit now. So Bravo Zulu, John, thank you for your report. That's John Emmett's regular coaching corner. Get to the front of the fleet with John Emmett, and we appreciate, as always, what he does for us and our beloved sport. Gordon Smith saying, and he's a Brit but living in Denmark, he says Castle Cove is a really busy club in a wonderful spot.
That's great.
Groover's saying it looks like that ruin. Steve is saying that ruin could collapse at any time and send the sharp fence hurtling at John.
Oh, don't.
Okay, to Ryman's Ted, great report as usual. Wonderful report, John. Exactly, indeed.
Yeah.
Let's get Britt Ward in here because we're going to talk about the America's Cup AC37 hindsight and insight. Welcome to you from Annapolis, Maryland. You're at home, not at Farr Yacht Design, Britt. Welcome.
I am at home, Tom. That's right. Just recently back from Spain and Europe, so put it all back together.
What was going on in New Orleans? Didn't you just come back like at 0100 this morning from New Orleans?
Well, what is say? You want to diversify your business, and not all great ideas come from one sector. So I'm doing some work in the commercial space, and there was a big workboat convention down there every year in November, December time.
The workboat, does that mean boats that go out and service the oil rigs, or what does that mean?
So, yeah, oil rigs or barges or diving response or these sorts of things. So I do some work in that space, and it was a good chance to go meet a lot of vendors and meet some clients. So.
Yeah.
Quick trip to New Orleans.
Remind us about your pedigree, your background, because we met, during the 86, 87 America's Cup. Aren't you from Frio originally, from Perth?
Yes. Yeah, I moved to Perth when I was 1, and I grew up there sailing, and let's just say Australia 2 winning was kind of a watershed event in my life, and then I watched the defense from my house. I was about 12 years old, and that's far too impressionable to have an America's Cup in your backyard. And basically decided then and there I wanted to design America's Cup boats. And that led me to Webb Institute in New York, which led me on to MIT, which led me to Farr Yacht Design. And some 27 years later, working for American Magic as part of that.
And you and I did, 2 campaigns, 3 how many campaigns did we do?
I think we did 03 and 07, right?
Those are the 2 Oracle
Oracle
campaigns, one in New Zealand and one in Valencia, Spain.
Correct.
Neither of which we won.
Correct. I'm still trying to win this thing. That's what I mean. It's an illness.
It is. We say it's a virus. It's a virus, and once you've been injected, it's and you and I and Julia, for that matter, it's been a main lining of the America's Cup virus, or the bug has bitten you, and you'll never give it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Alistair. Go ahead.
I thought I'd escaped after 2007, and I thought I was done. So to have another opportunity to come back was not expected, to be honest. But I'm thrilled I got the chance. So
Stingray wants to know, you moving to Frio at age 1 seemed like a big decision. Where did you move?
I was actually born on an Air Force base in Alabama.
Oh,
My
really?
my parents are from Connecticut. So
All those nights that you and I and Bruce Farr had steak and a Pinot Noir at, what was the name of that restaurant in Auckland we used to go to next to that hotel?
I don't remember that one. I still remember the docks in Valencia, but
The docks in Valencia. We spent some nights there. Well, it's great to have you on the show, Julia. When we were doing the getting him sorted out here in the pre-show for the tech check,
Right.
10, 15 minutes before we went live. You know how we can tell? Britt said the same thing. We haven't talked in a year because that's the last time our Skype said that we had talked.
exactly.
Well, you disappeared. You went to work for American Magic and you went under an NDA, and they said, don't talk to that guy Eamon. You might tell him something we don't want to get out there and get public.
Pretty well, I'd prefer to keep you in the back room anyway. So
There's got to be a pony in here somewhere, right?
yeah,
You know the old joke.
So, yeah.
Okay, Britt, hindsight and insight. Let's start. You tell me where you want to start, but let's start here with American Magic. Great team, lots of potential, well funded, a rather lower freeboard boat than the rest. Got eliminated by Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli. Why?
I think, we've all spent hours in debriefs and thinking through it, and that's certainly not the result we expected, I think. I think those races against Luna Rossa probably were the closest of the entire series, to be honest. More lead changes in those races than in the rest of the regatta combined, I think. So the differences are really small. And I think, certainly we had the misfortune of Goody, who are, one of our primary helmsmen, having that injury right before the semifinals started. And, Lucas stepped in and did an incredible job, a truly masterful job. But one of the challenges of these boats, especially with a one-boat program, is you don't have the ability to develop a really big bench of substitutes, and the simulators are great and the AC40s are great, but it's not the same as racing a 75. And so I think that set us back. I think the real test of all these teams is how quickly can you keep developing from the minute you put the boat in the water, and how steep can you climb that? I think Ineos did an exceptional job of that, of leaping forward, and I think we just didn't quite match that same rate of growth. I think I'm really proud of the boat. It's a highlight of my career to create that thing, and there's not a lot of it I would change, to be honest.
Your role on the design team, Scott Ferguson was the so-called technical director? Was he head of the design team?
Scott was the design. We call it a design coordinator, but every team has one of this, and this is the challenge, right? You've got a design team of 50, 60 technical people. You've got a short time frame. How do you pull all those people together, many of whom are competitors outside of the cup, right? So, everyone's got to be willing, if it's going to work, everyone's got to leave all that at the door and put it and basically go all in to do this. So this is my first opportunity to work with Pete Melvin closely on the hull, and with a few of Pete's guys in different areas in aero and hydro simulation and appendage design. And, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But this time it was the best part of the whole thing was working with this different group of people and people's willingness to bring everything to the table and lay it all out and then just try to create the best thing we could. You've done enough of these cups to know. You're always starting a generation behind the boat that won. And so you have to match that, and then you have to try to get a generation in front of it. And, I firmly believe if you show up with something that looks a little bit like close to what they had last time, there's no way you're going to win. So we kind of swung for the fence in a few areas, and the most notable one, of course, is how our freeboard was 300 mil lower, and we had recumbent cyclers.
In retrospect, were the cyclers, was that not correct? Do you think that hurt you?
I don't, actually. I don't. I think I would do it again. People, because we're the only ones, and I was a bit surprised we were the only ones, to be honest. Suddenly, if we'd won the cup, that would be the reason why. And if we'd and now we lost it. Well, they definitely had a power deficit, and our guys never felt a deficit. I don't believe. I think, those guys worked hard. Those cyclists are incredible athletes, but I don't believe we ever compromised having any issue in any race where we were compromised through lack of hydraulic power. So I would have taken the aerodynamic gain. And I think, contrary to what a lot of people did, and all to the commentary about our covers and all the rest of it, that ours was actually a safer solution, because if the boat did capsize, those inboard cyclists are out of the water, and every other team would be in the water. So I think we were on a
So
safety.
say that again, Britt. Excuse me. So the cycling cockpits. What do you call the cycler cockpits? What'd you call them?
Well, the recumbent cycler cockpits are inboard,
Inboard more than the other teams.
closer to the center line of the boat.
Yep.
And that lets us pull the sides of the boat down, which reduces the if you will, the frontal and the side area of the boat was 10 to 20% less than all the other boats. And I don't need to run a whole lot of CFD to tell you that's generally the smarter way to go. If in doubt, especially in variable conditions, just the less area, the better, and less weight and less everything else. So because they're sitting in closer to the center line of the boat, if the boat capsizes, the guys in those cockpits are out of the water.
Got it. Understood.
Right?
Yeah.
And everyone else, they're in the water, and that's why, they all have the breathers. And we all had to do a whole series of tests to show we could pull them out in 4 seconds or whatever the time was with the covers in place, and we all passed that. So, like I said, it was a difference that stood out, and so it got an awful lot of focus, and probably a lot more than it deserved. So the way the rule structures were built this time, where every team got to comment on interpretations, and they went round and around and around, it sort of became, well, once we were the only ones, we were the ones that were going to get ganged up on,
Well, speaking of which, what was the deal with the honeycomb covers on the cockpits?
Well, the rule section, which is probably about 25 pages and took about 37 iterations to write on crew coverage, was one of the most painful and complicated pieces of the entire rule. But we did our numbers very early on and figured out, if with the recumbent setup, that we had area to spare, and that we could use those to generate those cockpits, those covers. And really the design, they do reduce just sort of the amount of airflow going in and out as the boat moves up and down. So it sort of reduces the mass flow and therefore reduces the drag. It makes, just keeps the air in the cockpit a little more stagnant and less circulation, and therefore less drag. And these are all small numbers, but we're chasing every little small piece we can, and that's the mission, right? So, I don't agree with some of those interpretations, and like I said, all the other teams threw things at the wall that some of them were really off the wall, but that we felt there was enough advantage in there that we figured out how to get around the final rule and get them in there. They're nice sunshades too for the guys, but.
Was it hot? Some people said that it was hotter in your cockpits.
Well, first of all, I would take our white deck versus any of the others for temperature, and you don't want airflow through there. That's synonymous with drag, so yeah. They're all hot. They're all carbon boxes. The recumbent cockpits have to be bigger by rule, and so our guys actually had more airflow around them, if you will, and were less restricted than any of the others. So, and at least a little bit, they could see the horizon when they looked out the back, which most of the other guys couldn't. So,
so not an issue.
I don't think so. Look, the story that everyone says, well, you guys are paying 10% less power than generating 10% less power than anyone. Well, I think you need to ask where that data comes from. Is what I would say.
What was interesting is that if they trained upright and then try recumbent, your wattage would be low, and if you trained recumbent, you can put out the same wattage.
Exactly. And so our guys trained for a year, and when we made that, it was a big call to make that direction, but like I said, I think you need to try to push, and the rule's quite tight, and Team New Zealand was very smart in how they crafted that rule to play to their advantages. And, as the New York Yacht Club knows well, for 132 years, that's the defender's prerogative, right?
Well, how did they craft the rule to play to their advantage? What was their advantage? We're talking about cyclers again?
Well, I mean, they had an advantage in cyclers because they'd done it before, but not specifically cyclers per se, but
But you're just saying the rule in general.
the rule in general, right? We can only build one boat. We have to declare our configurations 5 days before each event. We have a very limited number of components. We're not allowed to line up against any other challengers. We have to use one design supplied tactical software, one design supplied cant systems, and cant arms. There's a lot of little pieces in there and because we did one boat, the defender gets to race us in the round robins, right?
Yeah.
Every one of those is a way for them to check where we're at and then not give us enough time to develop and make a leap forward.
You said that the Brits did a good job. I mean, Luna Rossa, I guess we know about them. Part of their problem was sailing. I mean, they started well, but after that, they had some problems and reliability problems on their boat. But the Brits did improve. How did they manage to do that?
Oh, I think, and the thing with the Brits is they did it in Auckland as well, right? They had a lot of problems, and sometimes these problems can be quite small or require quite minor tweaks to make a leap forward. And I think they had some control issues early on, INEOS particularly, and once they got it dialed in, those went away. And so some of it's also conditions based. I think I think our boat and every one of these teams uses very similar tool sets to design their boats. And so it comes down to where each team wants to put a focus or feels there's more importance. We were very, very conscientious about being able to take off at the lowest possible speed. And I think that showed. I think the boat did that well. And we're also really concerned about the sea state and what effects that can have. And modeling the sea state effects is a very complicated problem that I'm not sure anyone can do to full fidelity. And so how much you believe you're achieving effective sealing to the water in idealized flat water versus rough water can drastically change some of the choices you make in terms of how you shape that bustle or that intercept or some of the drivers. And so clearly INEOS had a different tack and a different weight on some of those things than we did. And Team New Zealand a different take as well, and that's I think really responsible for a lot of the differences. And that's the fascinating thing about this game. The problem is we have to work for 2.5 years in isolation, not knowing how we stack up against anyone, and going around the team making sure we're trying to make the best thing. And when we get to the event, we want to move it shift relative to the competition as best we can.
What about the foils themselves and the differences in the foils?
I think, last time in Auckland, there was almost a 50% area difference between Luna Rossa and Team New Zealand. And I think this time we're probably in the 10 to 15% across the entire fleet. And smaller foils, there's a trade-off there. And again, it depends what wind speed you think you're racing in and what your cavitation tolerance is at the higher speeds. And do you think you need area to take off and maneuver? I think we're all within, like I said, within a few percent, I think. It is true. I think Team New Zealand and INEOS were on the smaller side of it, but we were all allowed to only build 3 foils effectively. We could build more flaps, but there's only so much modification you can do. So once again, you kind of you have to make your shot and make it work. And I think you saw Team New Zealand show up. They had one foil that was quite a bit bigger than the others just to prove it out and test it. Actually, there wasn't anything there.
Steve Gruber's asking, we got a lot of questions in the chat. Steve Gruber saying, TFE, Luna Rossa reminded me of America 2 in '86, far ahead in the beginning, but unable to advance. What think ye? And I think that's more appropriate for you.
Well, I think there's some luck involved in some of this too, right? I mean, if you go all the way back to the round robin, we lost a race because if I recall, we we touched down before the start. We couldn't catch up. Luna Rossa had a breakdown, a hydraulics breakdown. That hydraulics breakdown basically meant the series was now tied with Ineos, and then the tiebreaker went to Ineos. So just because of the virtue of that one breakdown, the semi-finals could have been completely reversed, and could have been us against Luna Rossa, or us against Ineos. And I think it's not certain. It's not enough time for statistically relevant, multiple round robins and repechage rounds and these things when you've got this fewer fleet. And so every race day counts. And Luna Rossa had some breakdowns, and they did in that semi-final series, and that it could well have easily been the other way. I think they were very, very consistent in the maneuvers and right up there in speed. But for the sake, how hard it is to pass on that track in a short course. It's really tough. So
it is indeed. And you're saying that the loss of Paul Goodison, loss of Goody, was huge.
I think it was. I feared it would be bigger than perhaps it was. I think, like I said, Lucas did an incredible job, and the team really encouraged him, and he brought his skills, and he'd really worked hard on the simulator. But just in terms of pure lack of time in the boat for your first real race to be in the semi-finals, that was a really big ask, and he really stepped up to it. I think 4-3, 5-3 is what it ended up at, and we're starting to put it together. So I think the boat's potential was there. I think the boat had the speed to do it, and I think our weak links, our maneuver consistency, I think we were really improving that dramatically, but that's probably an area of looking at, and that's just an incredibly complicated thing.
Speaking of maneuverability, the Kiwis seem to tack and jibe and come out higher and faster. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what all of us thought when we're watching this.
I think.
Go ahead.
I mean, if you look, and Mozzie Sales did this, and everyone did, even from the get-go, the difference any of us could achieve in straight line speed from foil shape or a little for change in foil area, one bad maneuver can swamp that, right? So in almost every tack, it seemed Team New Zealand was edging out Ineos by either 10, 20 meter advantage in distance to the mark. There's no other place you find that other than maneuvers, and so their maneuvering system, whether it's flight control or linked logic or how it all works, was just that much better. And some of it is just technique. How you accelerate into the turn, the rate of the turn, you can make 50 meters make good difference in very, very subtle techniques in that choreography change between how all those functions are happening on the boat. It's fascinating. It's incredibly difficult to simulate, and the New Zealanders have really that they were the top, and I think we knew they were going to be tough. The maneuvers were exceptional from the very beginning, and they upped it at the end there.
How important was communication between the two drivers and the rest of the crew, for that matter?
I think communication's incredible. I try to come up with a good analogy, and I'm not sure I've come up with a good one yet, but I'm going to take a Formula One car, but I'm going to have two drivers, and each one can only see half the course. And in the middle through each turn, I'm going to have all their roles change, what they're doing, what they're looking at, what they've got to do. And so if they're doing that and successfully turning around the top mark in that full choreography at, up to 55 knots, it's remarkable they weren't all just pitch pulled right and left. I mean, it really is something to withhold, and I'm not sure the TV footage you can convey how complicated those maneuvers are and what they're achieving consistently. It's remarkable.
All the teams.
All the teams, yeah. All of them, and so we're talking about very little differences in those things. And yes, communication is key. And listen, but I thought that was one of the best part of the coverage is when the commentators weren't talking, we could just hear the comms off the boat, how it had one side painting the picture for the other, and how that choreography worked. It was interesting, and some noticeable but subtle differences in sort of when they hand off roles, and I think how they share roles across the boats, and those are interesting things that I think we're all trying to digest and understand each of the things we're doing. Is there something better out there, a different way, a different sequencing that could do it?
Okay, well, anything else on the current cup? I know you're limited to time. We've got the whole rest of the show, and we'll get you back on here, I'm sure, at some point. We hope New York's going to do this again. If they do, I hope you're part of the design team. And what else? If anybody in the chat wants to ask a question before we move ahead, I want to talk to Britt about the next cup as well. The insights he might have into what's going to happen for AC38.
Yes.
Anything else on AC37? Stingray wants to know if the cyclors operated controls.
They were tied into to certain control systems. That's about all I'll say. I think every team did that to a different set of extents, but our cyclers were certainly inputting information that was being used by the control systems. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Jeff Moxham, he says, agree with you, Britt. He says, no commentary was the best time in the broadcast. It's the same as watching an in-car camera in a race car, no commentary. Well, you know, we ended up, I was going to ask you, I don't know if you ever listened to our watch parties, as we called them here, but I dragged my sorry ass out of bed at 3:30 and went live at 5 a.m. And much to my utter astonishment, we had a huge following, and people said, oh, it's a lot more interesting to hear John Emmett and Gordon Smith and Graham Sweeney and Pedro Foiling Sailor and whoever else joined us in the commentary. Then listening to that Croutonic Steve, what was the guy's name? Stephen McIvor.
McIvor, yeah.
God, they've got to get rid of that guy, please, Britt.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did catch a few of the watch parties especially after we were eliminated and after we got over our grief at that. But I felt like there's so much information available and there were probably better ways to display it. I mean, the favorite one, I would have loved to see a Peloton challenge, 25-minute Peloton challenge, so that all the power metrics could be compared to what mere mortals could achieve. And I think that would have really put it in relief, what those
because the cyclers were doing such a good job.
Oh, it was incredible what those guys could do. And only at the very end did we start to get some total power numbers, but you never saw enough of it to make any sense of it or to compare it between boats or make any sense. And someone sees 1,500 watts flash up on the screen, but no one knows how that compares to what the mere mortal can achieve, right? So,
right.
Was the New Zealand flight controller, Alex Hayworth wants to know, was the New Zealand flight controller using a pilot-style control stick, and can this be copied by other teams?
We've seen some pictures and believe they had some sort of yoke system, but it's not entirely clear. The rules are quite strict on, like, we can't have sort of force feedback systems, and so
no stick shakers.
Yeah, and so I think it makes the idea of the pilot being able to feel the inertia of the boat and respond to it is a desirable thing. So they may have found a way to do that. I think a lot of people talk about autopilot. We're not allowed an autopilot per se, and the rules are written around that. But we do have certain items that we can have access to in real time, and so the design of all those systems and how you use that data is, it's just a massive area of innovation, and unfortunately it's something that you'll never see outside the boat, so I have all sorts of respect for our mechatronics team and the team developing those control systems and refining them and human interfaces devices. It's an incredible, intense challenge they had to deal with and make sure all those controls work every day, and the complex hydraulic systems. In that sense, it's a wholly unique sport.
Britt, how reliable, speaking of the software, how reliable was the software? We heard the Italians bitching and moaning about it, particularly Jimmy, and even a couple times the Brits. We didn't hear much coming out of your camp because I know the the nature of your team from top down, from Terry on down, was we're not going to complain. It's kind of like the old style, like Her Majesty the Queen, or the New York Yacht Club style, which is never complain, never explain, or never explain, never complain.
I think that there was I mean, that's certainly the team culture. I mean, I think Team New Zealand, you know, let's say this. In the past, I've sort of felt the firewall between the defender as an entity and the organizing authority, ACE or whatever it would be called, was a little more defined than it was this time.
Well, you had the CEO. You had the CEO of both. Was the same person. What do you think of that?
And your measures had the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron on their shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these software things were incredibly complicated, and to be honest, some of it, I mean, updates were rolling out repeatedly through there, and so Team New Zealand had those updates well before we got them. So I think that side of things was a little under-resourced. We did have access to some of that software, to inputs to some of that software, which we could tune, and I think that's something Ineos was doing quite well, updating their polars and their time on distance predictions and so forth. So I think that helped, but yeah, that's another one. Did it really save that much money, or did it just sort of close up the Challenger's range of development to keep them under the thumb and easier for the defender to cover?
Well, let's go back to the match, because I go to the previous slide here. Did anything surprise you about the match between Ineos and the Brits, and the Kiwis?
I mean, I really thought that some of them would be closer and that we'd probably have some more lead changes. I based on how close we were against Luna Rossa in the back and forth, but it just sort of shows you, if you once you're ahead, if you can protect it, and then it's really, really difficult to get by. So I think Team New Zealand sailed some pretty massively tactical races. I think, sort of as we probably expected, the importance on starting at speed versus where you start position wise is very much in the speed column. And so Team New Zealand seemed to, that's been their mantra, I think, even from the last cup. They just want to hit the line at speed. And if they're at speed with that boundary coming up so closely, you can start to control a race if you can get by there. So that was pretty clear.
Well, how it looks too like the whole pre-start, not the whole pre-start, but I simplify it. It sounds like trying to stay out of the dirty air of the other boat was about 90% of the pre-start.
Absolutely. And so, it cost us races early. We learned that lesson the hard way. If you attempted to make any maneuver in the wake stream from the other boat in the marginal conditions, you're off the foils and it's done. You were screwed with a capital F. Yeah. And so when that happened, when Team New Zealand did that I think it was the final, in one of the finals that they lost, I was pretty stunned, because that sort of became rule number one. It's do not attempt in a maneuver if you're just sailing through the wake sheet in the light air. It's too powerful.
Can you tell on the boats? Can they tell the instrumentation or otherwise? Can they tell when they're in the dirty air of the other team?
I mean, you see it somewhat in the wind speed, but again, we're all using a supplied bow wand system. Yeah. And the bow wand's not giving you a full read of what's happening across the wind. And so I think a lot of teams had some struggles in getting their wind solutions tuned. In fact, I think you even saw that in the raw data, in the data coming off the boats on some of those portals where, upwind and downwind on the same race course, teams were reading, a couple knots different in wind speed. So how they tuned their wind instruments and their wind solutions was part of that. But mostly you just had to remember where they were or know what their patterns were.
Do you want to say, and then we'll move to the next one, do you want to say what you think was the best thing about AC37 and what was the worst thing about it?
I mean, for me personally, that the American Magic team was the best part, working with those people. I mean, that was, I've done 5 cups, and every single person on that team, what they put into it, and the team culture that Terry and Doug and Hap built was phenomenal. And to scale that from, I was one of the first 5 in there because the hull has to start early, and to scale it to find 150 odd people that are willing and that will just put it all on the line every day is pretty remarkable. So for me personally, that was the highlight, and to have the opportunity to go live it. All the other cups I've done, I've sort of been in and out, so I haven't really been able to move there and be part of it. So to have that chance this time was really, really incredible. I think some of the rule things were a bit out of control in the way they'd structured it. And like I said, I don't think Ineos's Challenger record perhaps really, maybe they didn't have
I'll say it for you so you don't have to say it. They've come under enormous criticism. And I having, I chaired the Challenger Commission back in the 07 Cup, and when we were Challenger record and pulled all the challengers together, and we were a fighting unit against the Defender. They still won, but you've got to have a cohesive group of challengers, and by all accounts, Britt, that didn't happen this time.
That absolutely didn't happen this time, and I think that was,
Well, that's a good segue maybe into the next Cup. If we then go forward to AC38, and we know that the Challenger record next time is the same Challenger record, and particularly led by, in the person of Bertie Bickett, who we know. I can't remember if he's been on the show, Julie, or not, but we've gotten to know him over at St. Francis when he was here for the Sail GP. Mm-hmm. We're fully committed to working with the Defender to agree a protocol aimed to encourage more participant Challenger countries and further promote and expand both the Women's and the Youth America's Cup events. Nothing about making the Challengers more competitive, nothing about making it more fair. And maybe that goes in their minds without saying, but it's a bit, I think, disconcerting that the Brits, and this is the first time in memory that the Challenger record has repeated. In my whole long time, since 1980, and doing 11 cups and 13 now, as you count 2 as a journalist. Are we journalists, Julia?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Are we journalists, Britt?
Absolutely.
So now, having done all the cups since 1980 in one capacity or another, and then Sir Ben goes on to say, this is just, by the way, just out, today, I think, or last night, the 37th America's Cup proved to be a huge success, both on and off the water, showcasing the unique value of the America's Cup as a global sporting property. Now, here were some comments. That was a post on there, I think, on their Instagram, and there were a lot of comments, and I'm just grabbing 3. There were some positive comments too, but there were a lot more of the comments like these, where somebody named Andy Moore, I don't know whom he is or she, revert to yachts that the majority of the sailing community can relate to. We want to see crew work, actual sailors, maneuvers, mark roundings, rule infringements. Trying to emulate F1 isn't going to work. Even people that like F1 think the America's Cup is boring, or maybe they think F1 is boring. I'm not sure. Yeah. Andy, there's a Peter Evans there, Britt, saying, Andy, here, big lasers. Andy Moore, Roman galleons. What should AC38, what do you think it should be? Well, and then let's ask you, what do you think it will be?
Look, I think, if anyone has witnessed the boats and witnessed one of these races with their own eyes, I think it changes your perspective quite dramatically. Almost all my family made it to Barcelona and got to go out on the water and watch them. And my mother became perhaps the biggest fan of the entire team. I mean, I'm getting messages nonstop. What happened? What's going on? And so experiencing it does change things. I think the foiling thing is out of the bag. I mean, like you, there was a reason back in the day we required the winch drums to be above the deck so that you could see all the crew. I've done this. The Volvo 65, part of that that I designed, part of that was driven by the photographers and the camera shots they wanted of the crew getting drenched and the water coming over the deck, and getting the right camera off the quarter. So we did lose something when we buried everyone underneath, but I don't know if you're still going to if you're going to sail in a venue that's going to be in the marginal 6.5 knot conditions, you can't add crew. We have to be lightweight, as light as possible. If we're going to use the same foil arms, that are one design. We can't make the foils any bigger. So it really depends how far they want to go at changing things.
Okay, so let me back you up. Sorry. So you're saying you like the boats, you like what's happened here, and is this typical? Is this because you're a typical designer who knows how this thing's going, and you just don't want to be critical of the direction this is going, or?
Well, I mean, Tom, you had me on last cup when I wasn't involved. You had me on, and we critiqued them, and there's a lot of very strange things about them, and I guess I'm just not sure how you put the genie back in the bottle. I really don't.
I hear you. Okay, so you're being practical, and that makes sense. Can we make how do we make the racing therefore more interesting, where there are more opportunities? And okay, I recognize that even in the IACC or the 12-pounder era, or even the J-boat era, it was slow and there weren't many chances to pass.
I don't have answers, but I think we do need to look at some of the rules and the course and maybe the course length. I mean, we have to acknowledge that because we're apparent wind sailing, that typically that ability for the boat behind to cover downwind doesn't exist. So how do we change it? Maybe we extend the boundary. The first boundary for the first cross has to be much wider to give more tactical options. I think there has to be some ways to change it that will improve the chance of people to pass, but also so much of it is venue dependent, right? And that's the big question none of us have an answer to right now.
Well, Julia's got a point here, or a question.
Yeah. One thing we don't talk about is the mutual sort of software for all of it, and there's been criticism of it, and it's the area in which there have been no grand improvements. And if we release that from
and let the teams do their own software,
would that add to anything?
I think my sense is that two levels of software. There's a tactical software that says where you are in the course, and that's some acceleration numbers, and there's a point to that. And then there's the flight control software that links. There's linked functions that we added this time, so that multiple adjusting one control could move a whole bunch of things in concert.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably gone too far. I've heard this sort of rumored that perhaps we add the ability to have some stored power for the aerodynamic controls that would let us get a fifth sailor on there. It's maybe only 3 grinders, so we keep the weight about the same, but we get more functions and more sailors doing things, and I think that might be a smart.
You say it's gone too far. You think the fly-by-wire, the automation has gone too far? The software linking multiple functions together, I guess is what you were saying?
Yeah, I think it. I think Team New Zealand felt they had an advantage there, and so they opened up the door there, and I think they maintained that advantage. None of us quite really got there. I think Ineos probably got the closest, and maybe that's the F1 advantage speaking there.
Yeah.
But
can we go ahead?
No.
Okay. Can we go back to the weather for a second? There's a couple questions here. In fact, a new gentleman, I guess it's a guy whose name I don't recognize, an interesting question that I heard from, Britt, we've known each other a long time, and I have friends all over the waterfront, inside and outside of teams, and I'm pretty good at differentiating between rumors and, facts and bullshit, and particularly when I'm being bullshitted, because I used to be very good at that. It takes one to know one, right? But I was hearing that you guys had problems making the right jib call, and that led people to wondering. And there's a couple, as I said, there's a gentleman on here, Spencer Hamilton Barnes Kunath. Do you know that? I don't know this person.
I don't.
But welcome to you, sir. What about our weather assumptions? Did the WX turn? He looks, he's got in his profile picture, he's got a vest on. He must be a sailor. Did the WX turn up a bit above expectations? The breeze, I guess. How much did that matter, and how reliable were the wind calls? Because it must have been exceedingly difficult to call the wind. We'd see a weather forecast the night before, and even that morning getting up expecting it was going to be 6 to 8, and it would be 12 to 14, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's a well, you'd have Chris Bedford on, and I'm sure he can expand up for a whole show about the complexities of calling the weather there. And
Chris
so,
Bedford, your weather guy.
He was our weather guy,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a hard place to make the call. I think the only thing you can take away in the end, though, was consistently, Team New Zealand was always sailing with us, usually a jib code down from everyone else, a smaller jib than everyone else. Because it's lower aerodynamic drag, and because I think they had such faith in their ability and their maneuvers to not lose enough speed to have to reaccelerate so much that they could get away with the smaller jib.
Did the jib size, the smaller the jib, were you more concerned about falling off the foils?
If you did fall off, that's when it manifested. But I think if you were in the air, it was not an issue, so it became an acceleration term. It's another one where I think some of them just had different geometries that were similar codes, and I actually think the commentators had a hard time picking whether it was a 1.5 on that one or a 2 on the other one. I mean, we had a playbook where we measure every one of them, and we could try to identify what everyone had up there. But
we had an ongoing game on the watch parties, and what one team called a 1 looked like a 1.5 that some other team was calling, and it was all. And you also know how the games get played, where the teams miss stencil the numbers on the jib bags and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Covers on the numbers or hiding it, and your recon team's out there watching to see what they're going to hoist, and you make the call at the last minute, and I mean, that is the game,
yeah.
Right? And I think all the teams had sailed in Barcelona long enough to know, at least to be able to see the signs, and they'd all drilled hard enough that they'd push that call out as long as they could and go with the one that they'd built the most confidence in. But
well, Britt, your hull was beautiful. A lot
you.
of us. I mean, you were the. Were you technically the hydro guy? Or you were the hull guy?
I was the hull development lead.
Hull
but I also did a lot of the rudders.
Lead.
So.
Well, your hull was beautiful, and all of us that saw it right out of the box were impressed. Still are. And I hope you're with that team. I hope the team goes forward. And what I'm hearing, it sounds like they are going to go forward. I hope so. And I hope you're with the team. And because, again, you and I both know how important it is to have the shared experience and with the same people and doing it again, which is probably, I don't know if it's 75%, but it's probably 50% of the Kiwi success. It's a very big part of their success, I think. And
exactly. Again, when you win, every choice they make looks brilliant, right? And so the hard challenge for all of us is to parse what made a difference and what didn't. But you actually had a good example of that last time, where Luna Rossa had the jib boom the main boom under deck.
Yep.
And Team New Zealand had the track, and they reversed this time. So, everyone's balancing a whole bunch of different trade-offs and trying to make the best call they can. But
Britt, we could go on. We could go on all afternoon.
Will, yeah.
And
I'll let you move to your next.
No, it's not me. It's you. I told you we didn't want to keep you all afternoon. It's 5:00 there now. 1700 your time. But I do want to pin you down a little bit. Get your insight into the next cup. What you think it should be and what you think it will be. Pedro Foiling Sailor, who was here he left last night. Yeah. He's back in Sydney. Joined us quickly. He didn't want to miss this. Peter Stevenson. Britt's personality reminds me of the late Ben Lexon. There's a compliment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And the 2 main sheet system and the crossover ranges and sails and foils and yada yada. We could go on for hours, but let's the time that we have, let's ask you to talk about what you think. They're going to use the same boat. We got the same Challenger record. The rules are going to change a little bit. Are they going to get rid of cyclers completely?
I doubt it, because, again, it depends on the venue. If they're in a place that's reliably windy and 18 knots, then maybe we get rid of them.
It's going to either be in Auckland, and I think the chances is more likely I'll be the next Queen of England than it being in Auckland. I mean, they're not going to. They're in a tough economic time to gather the money up privately and otherwise. There's not going to be a lot of public funding. So I think Mr. Dalton, even though and Julie Ahrens, who's very close to Grant Dalton, is on here. She's on Cleveland. She's commenting as well. The chances of it going back to Auckland, I think, in fact, one hears the teams would rather stay in Europe for sponsor purposes.
I would believe that. So and I think you saw that.
And when $200 million is on offer, apparently from the Saudis and from the UAE and from Bahrain, people don't realize Bahrain is a separate country. It's not part of the Emirates, but you've got Dubai and Abu Dhabi that are part of the Emirates that also have that kind of money and sovereign wealth funds and yada, yada, and they're all trying to get their economies broadened out of oil. So I think that handwriting remains on the wall. Valencia is also in tough shape, notwithstanding the floods and the flooding, but they got huge problems there. So spending public money on something like this is probably not going to be politically palatable to use.
I mean, my read is I think Team New Zealand has to say and make it seen as serious consideration that they will take it back to New Zealand. Otherwise, any goodwill they have with their own country is gone. But I think the likelihood's small. Yeah. So I'm back in the Middle East with you. I think Saudi Arabia, I don't want to get into a big political discussion about it, but I think people have to realize that entire families with kids and wives that want to move with these teams. And, we can talk about the Women's America's Cup out all you want, but I don't know how that works in Saudi Arabia.
In the KSA, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that leaves Abu Dhabi and the Emirates.
In the Emirates, so perhaps better there, but both those are generally light, and so as soon as we're talking light air, if we're going to use the same foil arm package, we can't make the foils much bigger, and technically, can we take more weight out of the boat? That's probably unlikely. They're pretty much at the limit, and so crew weight becomes a big piece. So how do we add a lot of crew?
What if you don't? What if they simply go the way of the AC40 and they put battery cassettes?
That's the other path, is we take out cycles and we put batteries on there. And now we're down to, 4, 5, maybe 6 sailors per boat. I don't know. It's a long way from when we were campaigning. We had 2 full AACC boats, 2 boating with 2 full crews, I'm not sure it's a great thing for the future of the top end of our sport, in all honesty. So I'm not sure how to navigate it, but I think the choice of venue dictates, and how far they want to reuse or maintain existing one design components sort of dictates the path from here.
Apparently, and Julie is confirming this, I've heard, and I don't know if we're all talking, a lot of the people, the FOSI that are on here that are watching, we all talk to each other and we all post. I don't, but a lot of people post in social media, only on my own Facebook page, and sometimes one of us picks up a rumor and posts it and reposts it, and then everybody picks it up and said, "Oh, I heard or I read." And I learned long ago that the time, Britt, I was just the new executive director of USYRU, and it was during the '79 Fastnet, the summer of '79, the Fastnet, and I got a call from Barbara Lloyd at the New York Times, who was covering, and she said, "I hear Ted Turner's been lost at sea." And I said, "Really? Are you sure? I haven't heard that, but I'll check around." So I called his office in Atlanta, and they didn't know, and they didn't want to say. Then I got a call, because I knew Walter Cronkite, and I got a call from Mr. Cronkite's office, and I could hear him in the background. His secretary was saying, "Mr. Eamon, I'm so on, Mr." And I thought I was talking about being BS'd. I thought it was, wasn't even. And he finally grabbed the phone and said, "Tom, this is Walter. We've heard that Mr. Turner is lost at sea, and we got our 6 o'clock news or 6:30 newscast coming up, and we're about to go with it. Can you confirm?" So I said, "Well, I have heard that from the New York Times, but I don't know." And then he had also heard it, or somebody had heard it at CBS had heard it. So it was a circle jerk, if ever there was one. And they went with it, and then did I get it? Because then they attributed it to me at U.S. Yacht Racing Union, not to Barbara Lloyd or the New York Times. And I learned never, ever go with only, even two sources. You got to multi-source it and be sure the two sources aren't talking to each other. So
and you were talking to people then, it wasn't just words on a social media screen.
But it was great because they were in Plymouth at the finish, and Chuck Kirsch called, and he had Ted standing next to him, and Ted got on the phone, and he said, "Eamon, the king is dead. Long live the king." I felt like such a fool. I really, and I got so much. But in any event, I hear, speaking of which, and Julie Ahrens says it's not going to go to KSA because LV doesn't want to do it, and she thinks Grant Dalton doesn't want to do it. But I hear the teams that did you go to, by the way, Britt, did you go to that event? Were you there for that AC40?
No.
Because I hear the people from your team who were there didn't find it too difficult. Didn't find it difficult. And I know
they didn't, but all of those events we sent a very, very
bare
core
bones
crew,
yeah.
right? Just the bare bones technicians to get the boat on off of the water. I mean, the minimum you needed, and you're only there for 2 weeks, and it's a lot different than, like I said, kids in school and wives are trying to work and or husbands hopefully go to work. We had a lot of great women on our team, both technical capacities and sailing, and their spouses would have to work and do things, and quite how all that works. I think probably the other Emirates are probably be a better fit.
Well, if it goes back to Auckland, and I sure hope it does, I still think it should have been there. I wish it hadn't left. As you know, I haven't talked to you in a year, but if it does, and you go back, I'll go down and we'll go to that little. Apparently, that restaurant's closed. He sold it, the guy that owned it. But the Occidental down there in the alley where we could have.
Yeah.
We had a lot of, you and I and Bruce Farr had a lot of fun together. Bruce, who wouldn't talk to me for 3 cups, he was so mad at me, and then we became best friends when we realized we were. Well, sometimes, remember, we haven't told the story. Sometimes we'll tell the story about how Bruce told you and me, "Hey, we're leaving Oracle. We're going to Luna Rossa. I've done a deal for the 3 of us." You remember that?
I do.
After 07? Oh, dear.
I do.
Hey, Brett, anything else on AC38, what you think will happen or what you think should happen?
No. Well, the Challenger record curse, the Defender curse is they have to write the rules and figure all this stuff out and be distracted by it. So I'm just, any time I'm putting in now is all those things that I, trying to build the tool set up and build the capabilities up so that we try to make that next generation leap ahead that we've got to make if we're going to win it in whatever class they ended up with, in whatever venue they end up with. So, no, okay. I still want to win this thing. It's the big one, So,
yep.
Britt, would you come on again sometime? I've kept you longer than an hour, and we got so many questions and people. In fact, we might even do a Zoom call and let some of the Zoomers come on. Maybe not, but it's easier for me maybe to translate the questions off the chat. Can we do this again?
Anytime. Absolutely.
As long as you haven't blotted your copybook with anything you've told us here today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Julia, anything last? Any questions or comments?
Britt's been wonderful because he really does explain things well, and knows from whence he speaks. And
well, he's a bright boy,
Yeah.
And I've known him a long time. He gets himself to Webb Institute, and because you've been in the headhunting business for these institutions. Then he gets himself to MIT and gets his man. I'll tell you who's the only smarter person that I know than Britt Ward. His wife, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jay, what does she have? 5 PhDs?
One, but that's one more than me.
PhD from MIT?
No, University of Maryland.
Oh,
in
Maryland.
Helicopter dynamics. There you go.
Helicopter.
now there's something to put to work in the.
And she's teaching at the Naval Academy now.
Yes, she teaches actually naval architecture and ship design at the Naval Academy. So.
Okay. Well, did you ever? One last question: did you ever roll over at night and say, "Hey, honey, we've got this issue or that issue. What do you think we should do?"
Of course. Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
That was the right answer anyway, wasn't it, Julia?
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll get you
All right,
back on
guys.
it, but we let you go. Ted Ryman down in Cape Town is saying Britt definitely needs to come back. Really cool and interesting guest. Stingray up in Seattle, who used to be a code jockey at Boeing and retired a couple, 3 years ago. Thank you so much for everything, Britt. And on and on.
All right.
And as Julia likes to remind us, go back and
Read all the comments.
Yeah.
You
I
think,
will do. I will do. And I'm sure I'll start getting some messages too with questions. So anyway,
Yes.
it's great. It's always great to come on with you guys.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll talk soon. You'll have me on soon.
thank
Great.
you, Britt. And
Thanks,
hugs to Jay and your kids. And we'll see
Will
you.
do.
I hope to see you soon. Maybe we'll
Okay.
talk about Super 12s at some point too.
There you go. Still got my pin.
Oh, great.
So,
Let's take it out.
Okay, we'll
All
do
right.
that. Okay, thanks, Britt.
Okay.
Ciao.
yeah. Bye.
Okay, Julia, that was fun. Britt Ward
Was.
live from Annapolis. At home, not at Farr Yacht Design. He's the senior naval architect. I can't remember what his title is at FYD, but senior serious guy. And Bruce has he sold the company to Britt and a couple of the other guys. And I don't need to say any more. He's just a terrific guy. Let's go to the
Yes.
Vendée, shall we? We're an hour and 16 minutes into this show. Let's catch up on the Vendée because it's compressed. They've gone into this light spot, and the whole fleet. There were 10 boats, practically overlapped, and in a global or in a offshore sense of the word. And now there are something like 20 boats overlapped. Here is the headline from this morning. Maxime Sorel, it was a Black Friday for him. He's had to drop out. He broke his ankle or did something terrible to his ankle, and he's in such pain that he can't really function on the yacht. I can't go on. I'm abandoning. This is my second Vendée Globe. Grimaced an emotional French Vendée Globe skipper, Maxime Sorel, early this morning, Friday morning. And he's headed, or early this Friday afternoon, I guess it was, from Madeira. And he's going in, if he's not already in, he's going in to get his ankle x-rayed and fixed. Meanwhile, Sam Goodchild is having a good Friday and continues in the lead. But before we leave, Maxime, the 38-year-old skipper of V&B Monbana, Mayenne, who scored a brave, accomplished 10th in the 2020-2021 race, completing the racing circumnavigation with a previously unloved, unlucky boat, which since 2008 had never finished the Vendée Globe, is unfortunately the first skipper to abandon this 10th edition of the race. He has been forced out by a combination of a bad ankle injury and damage to his mainsail hook system and his mainsail car. That's where the main gets hoisted up to the top of the rig. He will head ashore in Madeira forthwith to have his ankle x-rayed. So bravo Zulu to him. Sorry that he's out.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know the gentleman, but everybody who does seems to speak very, very highly of him. Meanwhile, Sam Goodchild, Sebastian Simon, and Justine Metro
Great.
from Suiza, the Brit and the French and the Swiss, respectively, they are the top three in the series. And the other word is here that Goodchild is hanging in there with a lead of around 10 nautical miles. And it's a little hard to tell how they're using the rum line and how close they are to the Cape,
Right.
The next turning mark, in effect. And depending upon the weather systems, it could be a lead or it could be actually quite a bit behind. But in terms of just pure distance to the turning point at the Cape, down when they have to leave Ted Ryman to port, he is leading. And then this guy, Sebastian Simon, is in second, while Switzerland's Justine Metro, one of the women in the event, 9 women, has been between third and fourth all day, profiting from a fast drag race in the night alongside one of our favorites, at least, German skipper Boris Herrmann on Malizia Sea Explorer. Quote, "We are at 30 knots on a calm sea, side by side with Boris. We kept a bit of wind. It wasn't really planned like that, but it's good for morale," reported Justine Metro, the Swiss racer. Quote, "Yes, we have caught up, but there is such a long way to go." Unquote, "Everyone has their own way of tackling the huge windless zone ahead."
Yes.
Yeah, and they're in a
really
light
true.
patch, but it's not even the doldrums yet.
Right.
So there's fully 20 boats within 10, 15, 20 boats all in the same patch of water. Here's the video report from a couple of hours ago.
The Vendée Globe fleet has really compressed in distance apart from each other. The leaders, instead of carrying on down south, where there was still a bit of breeze, have gone into a high pressure system, with some of them now only doing 2 knots. And this could result in Jean Le Cam, who is a veteran. This is his 5th Vendée Globe, and is in a non-foiler boat, is currently carrying on down south instead of going west. And it looks like he may actually sneak round the leaders if this light wind conditions persists. It's a case of collective thinking, it seems, from the leaders, where they'd usually have the trade winds. They've all decided to stick together, and it's going to be very interesting to see if Jean Le Cam's audacious move pulls off. Taking a look at the tracker on the official Vendée Globe website, we can see how the leaders have taken that turn towards the west, but they are not making much headway. And if we take a look at them, and you can see here 2 knots for Thomas Rion there, and not much better for Sam Goodchild, who's currently in the lead. But if we take a look across to the east, we can see Jean Le Cam and Conrad Coleman are carrying on down the coast and looking like they're going to be taking that turn to the west a little bit later than the others. And they can use this airflow then, which is further south. And it's going to be so interesting to see how this situation plays out. On the leaderboard, we are probably going to see Jean Le Cam go into the lead purely because he'll end up further south than the others. How that will then play out in the longer run, we'll have to take a look and see. We'll keep you posted as the situation develops in the Vendée Globe, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel using the button over here, and be sure to take a look at sailworld.com and yachtsandyachting.com, which are both linked in from the YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.
Good stuff. This is
Yes.
going to be fun, isn't it, Julia?
Yes, and he's good.
And he's good, isn't he? He's not reading a script. He's got some talking points, some
Yeah.
bullet points, so he's more what's off the cuff, casual, relaxed. I like that, as you can tell, because we don't ever have a script here
I know.
or a teleprompter.
And if we did, we wouldn't follow it. But
That's-
I know.
I would. I'd read it. I'd go there and go in and read it like, oh, not at all. So I don't know who's really in the lead now. Lance Burke, a.k.a. Fog Machine, is saying there's various others. But I did grab another video of who was then the leader, Sam Goodchild, when I was preparing the show a few hours ago. And there's a lot of videos. There's videos from everybody. There is the proverbial fire hose
Yeah.
of content, but here is a 4-minute video from Sam Goodchild, and it's fun. This guy, you talk about relax and not having a script. Enjoy.
Hello everyone, it's Sam on Vulnerable. It's a light day, there's not a lot of wind, so it's fairly light. But someone sent a message this morning saying, Sam, have you appreciated the fact you're leading the Vendée Globe? No, I hadn't. But it's pretty cool, isn't it? Who knows how long it will last. But it's to be appreciated. So here's to that. We've had a good day fixing stuff. See ya. Hello, it's Sam. So we've had a good day fixing stuff. Making the best of the light winds. So we had a furler that got damaged. There was an electrical leak and it seems to have destroyed the furler. The autopilot we haven't quite fixed, but we've fixed half the problem. We're waiting for the other half. So we've still got a decent autopilot, we just haven't got a spare. What else have we got? I think that's about it really. We got music out. And a bit of stretching to loosen up my back because it's getting sore not standing up the whole time. So there you go. That's the news from Vulnerable. See ya. Hello, it's Sam. Having a light wind day, so doing some DIY. We're going to have a J3 furler here, which has got something not working very well with it. It spins in one direction, not the other direction. So fortunately we got a spare, and I've just brought it up, and I'm going to put the spare in and then see if we can fix the original one in the cockpit, and that way we can have the another spare. So you go. Bye.
Okay, you get the idea, but I didn't realize this exercise segment was quite so long. Disco yoga, Chris Exley is saying. What were you going to say, Julia?
Jean Lacombe is a wily old folks. He could win this race even though he has no foils.
Yeah, wily old fox. Yeah, he could be. In any event, you get the idea. There were several other videos. This guy, though, is fun and
Yes, oh, he is.
funny, isn't he?
Yes.
I think we could end up with another Cole Brower here on our hands. Somebody's got some personality and some fun, and
Yeah.
we'll be looking forward to more videos from him and off his boat. As you know, they've got a long race. Clark Chapin was saying, you're going to cover somebody who's only 10 miles apart in a 20+ thousand mile race, as they have to go down and, as I said, leave Ted Ryman to port.
Yes.
And then, as you know, down in Cape Town, and then go around the other Cape. I won't even play the same video. I played it, I think, every show for the last 2 or 3 shows. But
It's
in
still-
case there's anybody new on here,
Yeah. It's still good to look at, though.
you go past those islands, and then you go past Australia, Cape Lewin, and get in to past New Zealand, and then to Point Nemo,
Mm-hmm.
where you're closer to the space station than you are to any other point on land, or around the Corn, as Paul Card calls it, Cape Horn, up past the doldrums again, and with any luck, you get into La Sable d'Olonne in less than, break the record at least, 72 days and change, I think it was last time.
Mm-hmm.
Around the world in 80 days.
Yes.
Da-da-da-da. Lots of cool. That's Tom Ogletree checking in from Savannah. Savannah, nice to see you there, and comments about the music. Okay, that's our Vendée report. We'll do that going forward every show, it looks like. And that brings us to this. We got some more stuff, some cool stuff, so stick with us here. I couldn't find anything interesting, Julia, on the 15th of November, which of course is today, but I did find 2 things from yesterday. So this is a belated this day in history.
Okay.
The first one is from 1889, and here is your first clue.
French. No French.
1889. Apropos the Vendée Globe. Apropos the music, the song I just sang, or hummed a minute ago.
I forgot.
Da 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 da.
Around the
da,
world
da.
in 80 days.
Right.
Okay.
Do you know who this woman is?
Oh, Nellie Bly.
Nellie Bly, that was not her real name. That was her pen name. She was a newspaper writer. She broke the proverbial glass ceiling and was writing. She did some pretty famous stuff. She went in and investigated a madhouse, which is what they were called, insane asylum in those days, and went in dressed as a patient, didn't tell anybody, went in and then documented the horrible, horrific conditions. Then one day she went to her editor at the New World, or whatever the paper was called, and said, hey, I'd like to beat the mythical 80-day round the world, what's his name, Fogg.
Yeah.
Philip.
Philip.
It wasn't Philip, it was something
No.
close to it. In any event, she suggested to her editor at the New York World that she take a trip around the world attempting to turn the fictional Around the World in 80 Days into fact. And a year later, at 9:40 a.m. on November 14th, she boarded a steamer of your late husband's line, the Hamburg America line, and began her journey with a goal of finishing in 75 days. Phileas Fogg. Look at all the comments rolling in there. Matt Gates' first girlfriend, Stingray, you were something else. So that's, and I looked all over and finally found her route, because I was curious how she did this.
Right.
She took the steamer across to she didn't go to Southampton. She went someplace up further north first, and then to Southampton, then over land by train, and down and across to the Suez, and another ship to Aden, and then across to Colombo and Penang and Singapore up to Hong Kong, ship to Hong Kong, and then a ship to San Francisco, if you look over there on the left side of that image. And then she had, by then, it looked like she was going to break the record, but the trains were dodgy.
Oh.
So the World, the editor, chartered a train that traveled at high speed, meaning 37 miles an hour. I'm
Wow.
just remembering what I read last night.
Yeah.
To get her over to Chicago and then to complete the last leg to New York. And in time, she brought with her the dress she was wearing, a sturdy overcoat, several changes of, as you would say, smalls, and a small travel bag carrying her toiletry essentials. That was it. It was all in a little bag.
Yes.
That, you know,
Yeah.
I saw pictures of it, something like
Yeah.
this. And that was it. And she had an overcoat for when it got cold. She carried most of her money and gold. She also, in banknotes and gold, in a bag tied around her neck. Huh?
Yes.
In a bag tied around her neck. Okay, so it went on, and then there were some other stories. But long story short, they also put on a guessing contest, and whoever could guess the closest to the day and the hour and the minute when she arrived back in New York, they would get a free trip to Europe, and eventually not only a free trip to Europe, but a free trip and money. So that was quite a deal. Here she is arriving back. This is a engraving. Arriving back after 72 days and 6 hours. A reception for Nellie Nye at Jersey City.
Nellie Bly.
Nellie Bly, rather. Thank you. On the completeness of her journey.
Completion.
Thank you, Julie. I can't see through my completion of her journey. Thank you. You got a bigger monitor than I do.
I do.
Which is why we got you here. So around the world in 72 days. In 1889, she started on this day, yesterday, the 14th of November, in an attempt to surpass the fictitious journey of Jules Verne's Phileas Fogg.
Right.
Which she did. Bravo Zulu to her. Starting on this day, the 14th of November, 1889. What do you think of that?
I think that's terrific.
Yeah, you know, apropos the...
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Apropos the yacht race, the Vendée Globe.
Indeed.
Don't you think?
I do.
Okay, that's why I stuck that in. Now, something else happened today, apropos our beloved sport. Yesterday, the 14th of November. I couldn't find anything interesting on the 15th, and then I go look on the 16th, so, you know, it ties into where you all are down under in Australia and New Zealand. What happened? What else happened on 14 November 1939, Julia? Yachting related, sailing, yacht racing related.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, and here's your first and only, first clue, not your only clue. The herringbone sole of a shoe was patented. Any idea? There's another clue.
First boat shoe.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it, Julia.
Yeah.
You got it. And do you have any idea who that gentleman is who got the first boat shoe patented?
No.
Fog Machine knows. Fritz Mueller knows. Pimsols
Sperry.
no. It's Sperry. It's a guy called Paul A. Sperry.
Oh, everybody knows Sperry's.
They know Sperry's, the shoes, but I never knew there was really a Paul Sperry.
No.
Who was a yacht racer, yachtsman, 1895 to 1982. Was there in Long Island Sound, is Connecticut. Connecticut's very proud of Sperry.
Yes.
And when sailing on Long Island Sound, Sperry apparently slipped on the deck and fell overboard. He was able to pull himself back on board, but the experience drove him. He was an inventor. He was a clever guy, apparently, to develop a non-slip shoe.
I'm so glad.
While experimenting with possibilities for non-slip shoes, he noticed his dog's ability to run down the icy hill without slipping. The grooves on their paws inspired him to try cutting grooved patterns in a natural rubber sole. What do you think of that?
I think that's
Apparently
clever.
somebody earlier had tried to do that in tires and realized that cutting grooves in tires got the water out and made the tires less slippery. But the guy didn't make shoes. But Mr. Sperry did. He tried various patterns of siping, apparently that's called, and settled on a herringbone pattern as the most effective. He cemented the prototype soles to a pair of canvas sneakers. Who was that guy up at Stanford that they named the Grove after? Come on, up at your school? That made those canvas top sneakers, the high top sneakers? Oh, come on.
Not Sam McDonald.
No. He's famous. The sneakers are famous. Everybody.
Nikes.
No, this is way before Mr. Nike.
Um,
The Chuck Taylor Grove
oh,
canvas top shoes. The
Chuck Taylor is the coach.
Well, the coach, he was a Stanfordite, though.
Yes.
The Grove is named after him. Okay,
Yes.
enough of all that.
We all met him at one point.
Well, I didn't. He's long gone. But the young man looked after. So he gave these prototype canvas shoes, Converse Chucks. They all got it now. Mueller's got it. J. Frederick Bland's got it. Taylor's got it. Peter Taylor, the Converse, of course, now. Chuck. Okay, so in any event, why am I going off here? When Sperry and his wife returned after they'd given the pair to this kid who looked after the boat, quote, Leon the kid, immediately threw a bucket of water on the deck and yelled, "Watch!" He took a running start and stopped dead in his tracks. This was the invention of the first pair of Sperry topsiders.
Love it.
Now, I didn't know this either. A friend, Donald White, who worked as an advertising salesman for McGraw-Hill, the big book company, suggested Sperry sell directly by mail. They were way ahead of their time. This is the Amazon of the time, apparently. And helped him compose a letter to send to all 500 of Sperry's fellow members of the Cruising Club of America.
Aha.
Sperry received responses and requests for shoes from all 500 members. I don't quite believe that, but it's a good story. Even if he received from
Talk about
400, that's pretty amazing.
directed marketing.
Directed marketing. So that's the story. Then the War Department took over, as often happens. The Navy got involved. They bought shoes. They gave them to everybody in the Navy. They gave them to even as the casual shoe for those at the Naval Academy. And you remember those of us who were teenagers and read the preppy handbook in the, 70s? And it was the big thing to look preppy and wear topsiders because JFK wore topsiders and others of the Ivy League persuasion.
Yes.
Very preppy. And that was, then it went badly out of style. You didn't want to look at them unless you were a boater. In fact, today boaters don't wear them because they're cocktail shoes. But according to this footwearnews.com, this is an article from just a couple weeks ago, boat shoes were always in and out of fashion. Currently, they're having a comeback moment with many celebrities embracing the style. As if I care about Prince Harry, David Beckham, Ryan Reynolds, and Andrew Garfield pictured there with somebody, one of his squeezes. Maybe his wife, I don't know. According to footwearnews.com. Then there's a big article in the New York Times. When I started Googling around after seeing this, from just a couple weeks ago, the buzz on boat shoes, the category of footwear created when Franklin D. Roosevelt was president, not that he ever wore them, is being reinterpreted and rediscovered. According to an article from a couple months ago in the New York Times in April. The topsider is the platonic ideal of the shoe, said Jason Jules, the author of Black Ivy, a 2021 book examining how generations of black men, only the New York Times, adopted, improvised upon, and made their own elements of a sartorial code that originated among a largely white Ivy League elite. The sudden reemergence of the boat shoe in fashion is partly a reaction to sneaker fatigue, Mr. Jules, 60, said on a call from his home in Paraguay. With sneakers, quote, you're so overwhelmed by details that you need a manual to know how to wear them. Conversely, as any yachty can testify, topsiders are so elementary in their design they barely qualify as a shoe. And though the style has been reinterpreted in pop colorways, metallics, and subject to cool designer affiliations, it is the classic version that continues to resonate. Absolutely. And CNN ran a piece here. Just in August about, and these are all fakes. These aren't Sperry's. These are fake. I would never be caught dead in any of these shoes. But they said, where's that headline? They said, boat shoes are back and better than ever. Here are 16 comfy fashion experts. So all these shoemakers paid CNN to run this stupid story. There's my topsider of choice. I have two pairs, one a new pair that looks nice that I can wear to the YC and wear to a cocktail party if I have to. And then I have the old pair that's a couple of years old. I wear that for,
Getting wet.
getting wet and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon I'll move my new ones to be the old ones, throw the old ones out. About the time you have to start using duct tape or to keep the soles on so they don't open up, up in front. You need a pair of Crocs, bright pink ones, Stingray and Jody Shields are saying. Okay, that's it. On this yesterday, the 14th of November, Paul Sperry receives a patent for a non-slip boat shoe. And thanks to Steve Atkins, who apparently people in Connecticut are very proud of Paul Sperry from whence he came and where he invented the topsider. And this was a story forwarded last night by Commodore Steve Atkins, the Madison Beach Club. This is the Sailing Illustrated Shoe Show. Jody Shields.
Yes.
I couldn't help it. Let's go look at the Sail GP, which is happening not this weekend, but next weekend. Here's their promotional video that has no audio. When you go to their website, not unlike the other promotional videos they've shown for other events, but they're leading up to this 23rd and 24th Open of Season 5 in Dubai in the UAE. Now, what about all these people, these crew, the talent, the transfers? Richard Gladwell's been writing extensively about it. And first thing you want to know is what's happened to the Spanish team that won the grand finale last year, the Season 4 champion.
Mm-hmm.
They have confirmed their 2025 season, and it's basically unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
Bravo Zulu. And it looks like they're going to be tough. It looks like they fended off any poachers.
Yeah.
And they've got a good team coming back for Season 5. The confirmation of Spain's retained squad comes after a turbulent off-season period with established crew lineups disrupted by high-profile athlete transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds just like soccer, football.
Right.
These included Emirates GBR driver Giles Scott, who we told you about on Tuesday, transferring to Canada, and New Zealand flight controller Andy Maloney moving to Mubadala, Brazil, as we also have told you about, as well as the exit of Australia wing trimmer, which we had done a one here's on Tuesday, and that's true. That got announced during the show, in fact. Meanwhile, Dylan Fletcher, who drove the British Sail GP team in Season 1 and was the co-driver with Sir Ben Ainslie on their America's Cup team, has been announced as Scott's replacement for the upcoming 2025 season.
Wow.
Giles Scott is gone. He's gone to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So the Spanish, again, Bravo Zulu to them. This is the only team will give you their whole lineup, but these guys are good. They're going to be even better, I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
One suspects. Diego Botín, Florian Triddle, after all their experience in the Olympics and beyond. Joel Rodriguez, Juan Cardona, Bernardo Freitas. Ben Cornish is going to sub in only for Dubai as the grinder, and then the strategist, Nicole van der Velden. And the coach, again, is Simone Salva. They're going to be good, Julia. They are going to be good.
Well, I was betting on them all last season.
You were big fans of theirs.
Yes.
So let's see what else is going on. This is the confirmation that Chris Draper, the Brit, is going, and a superb match racer, is going to the Sail GP team Australia as wing trimmer. Chris is a British sailor who has won multiple world and European championships and a bronze medal at the 2004 Olympics, competing in the mixed 49er when the 49er was men and was male-female.
Mm-hmm.
Before they had separate classes, 49er and 49er FX. He has been a winner of the Extreme Sailing Series and was helmsman for LRPP, Italy's America's Cup Challenge, from 2011 to 2015, 46 years old, from Sheffield in the UK.
Terrific.
Now, what's going on with this British team and Sir Ben? His expectations are to win. That's the headline. That's the quote. Team CEO Ben Ainslie on appointing Dylan Fletcher Emirates GBR driver. Now get this. see they're blocking out his name. This was the
Oh, I was going to say, what are they blocking out?
this was the video to announce Dylan Fletcher
Oh,
in Portsmouth. And why in Portsmouth? Well, we'll tell you that in a minute too. But this goes on for, I don't know, a minute, and another 25 seconds here. And like it's some big drama, as if none of us are surprised. None of us is surprised, to use the proper grammar.
thank you.
And Dylan's good.
Yep.
And I think Ben made the right choice rather than putting himself on there, but he obviously didn't have much use for his other teammates, including Hannah Mills, who a lot of us were hoping might be on the wheel of the British boat.
Mm-hmm.
But all these transfers and poaching, Andy Maloney we mentioned, Kyle Langford we mentioned, and now Giles Scott, who had his hands on the wheel last year with Hannah there in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Giles has gone to Canada. Hannah's still with the team, I guess. One hears, but Canada has been sold to another owner, a deep-pocketed owner, and he's hired Giles Scott. Or she, I don't know who it is. Brave men walking around Portsmouth dressed like that, Gordon Smith, funny. So what else did Sir Ben say? Well, Scott's move to Canada left an empty driver's seat on the British F50 with Ainsley head down in the Cup, the America's Cup these past months. The rumor mill began turning as SailGP fans clamored. This is a SailGP article. As SailGP fans clamored to know who would replace Scott, 3 names came to the fore. Dylan Fletcher, of course, Ainsley's co-cup driver who drove the British SailGP team in Season 1,
Mm-hmm.
Emirates GBR strategist Hannah Mills, and Ainsley himself.
Mm-hmm.
This time the fans were bang on. There were the 3 candidates under Ainsley's consideration. It wasn't an easy decision. There was a lot to weigh up, Ainsley admits, with his own time on the water feeling like unfinished business. Well, this was all after, what's he going to do? He's going to replace the driver, Giles Scott, that he had last time. He put on the boat halfway or 2/3 of the way through the season the last time. Well, Giles got hired away in the meantime. I think Giles could see the handwriting on the wall, and he was probably mad. It's a tough one. It's a quote from Ben. It's a tough one because ultimately I love the sailing part more than anything. I still feel good physically. I can get around the boat just fine, but it's about the future of the team, and I don't think the future of the team on the water should be based around me. I think he should have come to that conclusion some months ago, if I do say so myself.
Yes.
Sorry to repeat. More and more, he says his role is the management side, being the CEO of the organization. That's where my skills are best focused, quote unquote. So Dylan is really stepped up, Ben says, on and off the water. And again, to be fair, you never know what goes on in the meeting rooms, in the design team meetings, in the locker room, because there are some people with whom I've been to war in the America's Cup who look like great drivers, but they are not leaders of men and women.
Right.
On the boat or off the boat.
Right.
So without naming names, one never knows. And you got to give Ben the benefit of the doubt. He's chosen Dylan, and looking at the season ahead, Ainsley has high hopes that Fletcher will get on top of the changes coming to the league. And I put this paragraph in not to talk about Dylan, but because of all these changes. These include the introduction of the T-foils, which happens at the Auckland regatta, not this first regatta.
Mm-hmm.
The expanded F50 fleet and the number of high-profile transfers disrupting established teams.
Uh-huh.
Ainsley is under no illusion of, quote, how tough it is, unquote, and he admits it's, quote, it's going to take time, but he sees Emirates GBR as one of the best teams in the league. Well, he has to say that, and I hope it's true. Knowing Dylan as I do now, I think his expectations are to win, and that's really why I put him in that role. I hope his expectations are to win, Ben. Mm-hmm. A long season lies ahead with 14 events staged across 5 continents, but Ainsley has eyes on Abu Dhabi's grand final. Is it realistic to be in the top 3 at the end of the season? It's a push, but I don't see why not. So, Julia, not for this show, but a future show, I think we will put up a FOSI poll and see, next Tuesday or Friday, see what people think. Who is going to prevail not only next weekend in Dubai, but who is going to prevail in season 5?
Is it too soon to do that? No.
Yeah, let's don't do it today. Let's do it. Let's do it ahead of the season.
Yeah.
Emirates, yes, Stingray. I saw that, but I didn't put it in the show. Emirates has signed a 5-year Sail GP support deal. Well, it wasn't signed today. It was announced today. I saw that. Thank you, Stingray. Alan Long, we're back to the dog walking thing. Enjoyed the Sperry thing while walking with poop bag in hand. Love those distractions. You folks are great. Thank you, sir. Yeah, well, that was a Tom. That wasn't even tangential. I mean, that's a significant thing. Sperry topsiders.
It is.
You're the shoe queen, Julie. How many pairs of topsiders do you have?
Oh, probably 3.
Only 3?
Yep.
You must have 100 pairs of shoes up there in the
I do,
Commodores.
but they're not topsiders.
Why don't you throw out you only wear about 3 of them.
I can't wear all of them now.
Well.
I would if I could.
14 events, rather, in 12 months is not too shabby, Gordon Smith is saying. Good point, Gordon.
Yes.
Okay, I got a video here that the Brits also put out, or Sail GP put out, about the Brits and all these changes, and the upcoming British Sail Grand Prix that's coming to, well, we'll not tell you where, in July.
Oh, yeah?
A masterful performance just when you thought they were out. Emirates GBR comes sailing back.
It is the Emirates Great Britain!
It's go, clear start, superb work. Welcome back to the winner's podium. It will be Emirates GBR that claims the win. Too close. Wow, look how close they are.
Incredible scenes here.
Well, they're in Portsmouth, which is where that Ineos Britannia team was headquartered for a while. Apparently, they've sold or let that building that they had. It was a big building, big bespoke building. But that's now where the Sail GP is going to be in the UK in July. July the what? 20, doesn't matter. We'll be talking about that in the days and months to come. There's the full schedule starting in Dubai next weekend on the 23rd and 24th, and over to New Zealand in the middle of January to take December off, of course, for the holidays, then to Oz for event number 3 in early February.
Then the USA.
Then over here to LA in March, then up here in late March, only a week apart. Those 2 events are really close, Julia. And then 06 is down in Brazil in May. So they transport in April, get down to Brazil for the first event in Brazil, then back to the USA, New York for number 7, then over to GBR for the To Be Advised. Well, we now are advising you as of today, it's going to be in Portsmouth in July. There it is, the 19th and 20th. Then to Germany, then to Italy, then back to Switzerland. Where's number 12? España. The Middle East, yet to be determined. It will be announced. And then finally the UAE, event 14 in the UAE in November. And they're getting their season started in the UAE in November, and they're going to end it in the November of 2020.
That's a real operation.
That is a big operation. Steve Atkins, who's on here, Commodore Atkins, is saying, thanks again, Steve, for the tip on Topsider. New York has sucked 2 rounds. Yeah, it's been not a great venue, but they have all that media and all the advertising and all the sponsors. Chris Exley saying Dylan Fletcher is really making a name for himself. Will be interesting to see how he does in Sail GP. Betting it will be him and Giles helming the Brit boat in AC38. You think Giles Scott will go back? We'll see. I don't think it's going to be Sir Ben. It better not be Sir Ben. Should not be Sir Ben. Okay, that's our Sail GP update with a week to go to the start of Season 5. Now,
Yes.
From the other end of the globe, we've got an AAAA from Guess Who?
Oh, good.
G'day Tom, Julia and all the FOSI. This is Alistair here with AAAA, Alistair's Awesome Aussie Anecdote. I'm speaking to you from the Etchells Nationals at beautiful Meetung Yacht Club in Victoria, Australia. We've got 33 Etchells here. I'm actually out on the start boat doing my duty, and we're about 15 minutes away from starting the 8th race with the final 2 races planned today. The regatta's been a great success, beautiful winds, great race management, great social program which has been a bit taxing at times, but I've managed to keep up. Leading the regatta we have Graham Taylor, GT as he's known, and he is the current world champion in the Etchells. Hot on their heels is Mark Thornborough from Hong Kong. Mark is actually staying at my house, and we've had a great time. I would have thought these guys would take their sailing very seriously and be in bed early and every night. But we've been drinking pretty hard, playing pool till midnight, having a great time. But they're still doing well on the water, and in fact they're lying in 2nd place. Mark has Malcolm Page, the dual gold medalist, sailing with him. He's staying with us as well, and also Mike Huang and Julian Plant. So that's been a lot of fun. So I'm just here with on the start boat. You'll see the race management team in the background there, just panning around. We've got a terrific fleet, 33 Etchells. We usually get a bit more for nationals, but it's pretty remote, and we're having a great time. I'll come back later and we'll have a chat to the PRO, Ross Wilson, and his brother Kevin, who are a fixture at Australian regattas. They're legendary race officers, international race officers, and I've told them I'd like to have a chat to them and get to know them, introduce them to the FOSI. Actually, I might just get Ross. Just wait for the camera. Just for Sailing Illustrated in the USA. That's Ross Wilson. I just told Ross we'll have a chat later.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Have a good race.
Thank you. We will be. A glam day here on Painesville, the Gippsland Lakes.
Yeah. Good on you, mate. Over and out for now.
A glam day, Julia.
Oh, yes.
That regatta was a week or so ago. That was the 1st through the 5th, so 10 days ago. And as you said, you got the world champion there, and you've got a lot of other top-notch sailors. They're preparing for their Worlds, which is in January, in Melbourne. So people are getting fired up about that, and here's Alistair again.
G'day, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. That's Friends of Sailing Illustrated. This is AAAA, Alistair's Awesome Aussie Anecdote for the week. And I'm standing here. I'd like to introduce you to interesting people and good people, and I'm with an old friend of mine, Mark Thornborough, who's come all the way from Hong Kong to sail in Meetung in the Etchells Nationals. So, Mark, welcome to Sailing Illustrated.
Thank you for introduction.
Yeah, and we'll talk a bit about Meetung, and then we'll talk about the Nationals. So Meetung, Trace, do a bit of a scan and just show the FOSI what Meetung looks like from the balcony of Mark's accommodation.
Yeah, Meetung's looked after us very well. Everybody's very friendly.
Yeah. So, and round to there, Trace, the full arc. See, it's a pretty spectacular view. So, Mark, you've what do you think of the hotel you stayed in this week?
Yeah, Alistair's and Tracy's hotel is pretty amazing. It's a pretty big hotel, actually. I don't know how many bedrooms they got.
It's a special place. And the wine collection?
Wine, rum, gin.
Yeah.
Beers.
Late night pool games.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't say what we call it. The
Jacuzzi.
Game. Yeah, the jacuzzi. Yeah. So you're here for the Nationals, and what do you think of Meetung as a place to sail?
It's a great place. The winds are good. Very shifty. Not too far from the club to the race site, which is nice, and good competition. Well run event by the Wilson brothers.
Yeah. Look at it now. The conditions, it's about 20 knots out there, flat water. It's absolutely beautiful. So, Mark, who crewed for you, and how'd you go?
Malcolm Page, Julian Plant and Mike Wang crewed for me. Mal and Mike, we've been sailing together for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
We had a good event here. We ended up second. GT beat us, but we're pushing him harder as we get closer to the Worlds.
You sailed really well. I was on the start boat and witnessed. You won 3 races, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really great effort, and that was a pretty hot fleet.
You've got 3 glasses now.
Gee, I needed
Another glass.
The Murray Hotel needed more glasses, and so heading home today.
Heading home at 12:30 with Mike from Melbourne.
Yeah, back to Hong Kong.
Yeah, back to Hong Kong.
And back here for
January, 3rd of January for the Worlds.
For the Worlds
in Melbourne.
Yeah. And what size fleet are you expecting?
40, 50 maybe?
I think more.
More?
I think you get more.
I hope so.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right, well, Mark, quick interview, quick chat. It's been a pleasure having you here, staying at our place.
Yeah.
I was actually a bit surprised. I thought serious athletes like you and your crew, I thought they'd be having early nights and staying off the grog. But you guys managed to enjoy yourselves.
You've got the party house.
We've got the party house. It's a trap. You probably shouldn't have stayed here. If you hadn't stayed here, you might have won the regatta.
No, thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Alistair, for letting us stay.
Good on you, Mark.
Fantastic.
Very welcome.
It's been our pleasure, hasn't it, Trace?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, good on you, mate. You're welcome here anytime. As are all the FOSI. Come and stay with us at Meetung. See you, Tom. See you, Julia. Bye.
Bye.
Now, here's some breaking news.
Yes.
I didn't know because I talked to them the other night and they didn't mention it. Star World Champions are heading to the Etchells World. This is how big a deal the Etchells Worlds is. It's a great class and a big deal.
Yes.
The Etchells National and World Championships in January 2025 at the Royal Brighton Yacht Club are attracting a range of international performers across classes, including the most recent Star Class World Champions, JK and Austin Sperry, John Kostecki and Austin. Quote, "I am still living a dream," unquote, said Sperry. JK and I jumped back in the Star this past May after a 20-year break, sailing a Star together. Going into the final race of the Worlds down in San Diego, there were 6 boats that had a chance to win the regatta. Fortunately, we sailed a great last race and won the World Championship by 1 point. What a relief. And they, Julia, are going to the Etchells Worlds, and they will be, I don't know who their third will be, but JB, John Bertrand, will be there.
Yeah.
GT, the current world champion you saw, just won the Aussie Nationals. They will be a hot fleet, and we will cover that regatta. Stingray, I just can't wait for the Etchells Worlds. Yes, sir. Gordon Smith, fun interviews with Alistair Murray again. Yeah, we don't know whose razor he had, but it was maybe not mine. It was John Emmett's.
No, Tracy will have it.
Oh, that's loud. I had to turn it up so we could hear those guys. Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Alistair. Great stuff. Much appreciated. And that about gets us to the end of this, but I'm going to be accused now of being a sexist for running. I told you, Julia, in the pre-show when we were talking with Britt in the tech check, I'll be accused of being a sexist here in the last leg of this show for running this video, but I thought it was a very interesting video. I could have run it in the Vendée Globe thing, but I think it's interesting, and it has nothing to do with it being Pip Hare and a woman in the kitchen of her Amoca 60.
Give you a little tour of the kitchen from the floor, because that's where I always end up when I'm making food. So we've got fresh water comes out of that hose there with a little button there, goes straight into the jet boil. My dried food for the day I get out in the morning, so that's that bag there, which has everything I need: dried meals, snacks, dried fruit, and I put that there. And then the meal that I'm going to eat or prepare, open it, goes in this end pocket here, so that I can add the boiling water to it safely inside that box. And I've got a silicone glove as well. It fits super rough, but I'm always wearing my foul weather gear to protect my legs. This morning I had ranchero scramble, which was quite nice. that bag's just waiting to be washed out. So basically all the old bags, I wash them before I put them, just rinse them out with seawater before I put them in the bin so they don't smell too much. And then of course, tea. So all my tea and supplies is up there. Tea is very important. I've got 2 tea mugs. This one is for the amazing Chococo hot chocolate, because it's a bit sticky. And this is my tea mug. And then the added bonus I have to show you is I've been getting little messages in my food bags. I decided I'm going to keep them all. But they're from friends and family at home, really amazingly made. And some really fantastic messages. So far I've had Isla, Isabel, oh there's a map of the world on the back, and Abby, and then I've got dingbats as well. So this one is a fish out of water.
Okay, so that was cool. It was,
Yes.
I would have run it if it was a guy. Huh?
Yes.
I would have run it, whoever did it. It's interesting. And as Alan Long says, MREs. You know what an MRE is?
Yes. Meals ready.
Keep going. To
Eat.
eat. Meals ready to eat. Exactly right. Well done, Julia.
It's good old.
Pretty smart Stanfordite, as usual. Good thing you're there. Good thing you're over there as my co-host. And what we promoted you. You're no longer the coordinating producer. You had some other title you liked the other day.
I don't know.
I need to spend this video about spending time in the kitchen to his partner Stingette. Pip is so great. Yeah, she is. Okay, Julia, we are to the the D block and the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Get your finger ready because a couple of these are not correct. I think they're funny though. On Tuesday, we showed you this one. Oh,
Yeah.
sweetie, you should be more careful. By the way, a bunch of sailors said hi. From Karma to the jet skier.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, we hate those things, don't we?
Yes.
We do. Well, that was from Ted Ryman. Then this came through in response to that. Ode to a jet ski person. Jet ski person, selfish fink. May your silly jet ski sink. May you hit a pile of rocks. Oh, hoonish summer coastal pox. Noisy, smoking, dickhead fool, on your loathsome leisure tool, give us all a jolly lark and sink beside a hungry shark.
Oh.
Scream as in its fangs you go, your last attention-seeking show, while on the beach we all join in with 3 cheers for the dorsal fin. That's from Alistair.
Oh, is it?
Mr. President sent that. President Emeritus now, the past president of Australian Sailing. Thank you for that one, Alistair. Now, Julia, they get a little pithier. This from Ryman. My dad says you're spying on us. The kid says to, you know who that is?
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. He's not your dad. Okay, Julia.
Oh.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, I'm going out. Well, watch your facial expression, Julia. You're not leaving this house until you change that mini skirt. Because I can see your balls, Richard.
Good.
There, we got testicles into the show, Stingray and all the rest of you, Jody, who were waiting. I got it into the show just for you guys. Huh? That came from Ryman. It gets worse, Julia.
Oh.
You got your finger ready?
Ready.
Okay, here's the last one. Shall I leave it on you or shall I go to the... I'll go big so we don't see your face. A dog and a cat are having an argument on who is the favorite of humans. The dog says, quote, humans like us more. They have even named a tooth, the canine tooth, after us. Naming such an important body part after us shows that they like us more. The cat smiles and says, quote, you are really not going to win this one, you know. Julia, come on, give us a finger away. That's for Greg Phillips down in Australia, sent that one. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Greg. That made my day. That gets us to the finish line finally. We are done with this one in 2 hours and 11 minutes in. And Julia likes to say,
Oh, yes. Like, follow, and share. Even, comments are welcome, even in replay, but really have fun reading the comments.
indeed. The comments are great. And again, the chatterers, the chat it's all perfect. As are all of you who support us via Patreon. We really appreciate whether you send us a check or a bottle of booze or just say hi. We really appreciate the FOSI more than you can ever imagine. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Tom Ogletree says the cat is right. Alistair, you're quite a chap, but your poems are kind of crap. There's Graham Sweeney's a poet, and he probably knows it. Poet, and I don't know it. Stick to sailing, me old chum, because when rhyming, you kind of bum. Alan Long's having fun. We're having fun.
Yeah.
We're thanking everybody who lets us have audio, video, and images for today's show. Julia, final thoughts.
Oh, another fun show. We just have to get the world under control and roll with it.
A lot of comments, a lot of fun audio and videos.
Yeah.
And that's the end of our week here. You're already on your weekend down under, but wherever in the world you are, we hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday, same time, same channel at 1300 Pacific. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.